Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a video that I'm very excited about. A few weeks ago I made an updated overview walkthrough of my reading / book series tracking spreadsheet, and a lot of people seem to really like it, which made me very happy because I'm very proud of my spreadsheet. And I am now going to be making a tutorial video on how to make an aesthetic spreadsheet for your reading tracking purposes. This can also just be applied to any spreadsheets that you might be wanting to make pretty. Hopefully you can take what I use here and kind of manipulate it to be what you want it to be. I will link my pretty aesthetic series walkthrough video for you if you want to check that out, but this is going to be starting from scratch, making a new spreadsheet. This has taken me a while to make because I've been doing a lot of notes to try and make this really comprehensive and explain everything I think you'll need, not just to make my exact spreadsheet, though if you follow all of these steps you'll end up with a spreadsheet that will basically be identical to my own, but so that hopefully you can use this and apply it to better work for your own aesthetic. Maybe you don't like beige as much as I do, but this will help you to kind of create something that works best for you. Without further ado, let's just start screen recording and get right into this, shall we? Okay, so here we have just a blank spreadsheet. I use Google Sheets for my spreadsheets, so I'm not sure how well this will all translate over to Excel, but Google Sheets is free. I like to use it for mine. So here we have the spreadsheet. Now, the first thing actually about making an aesthetic spreadsheet is having a color palette, which means we're going to need to make a color palette. So the first thing we're actually going to do, I have coolers just kind of tabbed up here. When I went to go make my spreadsheet, I Googled color palette generator. This was like the one that came up. I like how it works, so I haven't tried anything else, but I'm sure if you want to use a different color palette generator, you can. So the first thing that we're going to do here is make our base color. So the base color, you're going to want it to be pretty light, very close to white almost. So I like mine to be very beige, so I like to go for more orange base, and then we're going to want to keep it really bright and really unsaturated because everything is going to be on top of this. Now, if maybe you're someone you want it to be like a pink, you can. Maybe if you want it to be green, you can make it what you want, but be sure that it is this lighter, brighter kind of color. And once you have that, you can lock it in place and then play around with your other colors. These are going to be contrast. I use these on my more detailed tab to color off and designate which year I read each book. So I like them to be quite different, but I also want them to be in line with my aesthetic. I actually have another tab over here. This is my own color palette here. I have this linen color as my base, and then I have 4 other colors. I like softer colors that are not quite as saturated. They have a bit more gray tone in them. The key is you want it to be consistent with the saturation and brightness. So if we go back over to this just test palette and say I like the green, I want a nice green. Let's pick one. Let's say I like this color green. So we're gonna lock that in place. Say I want that as my contrast. Let's play around. Now, oh, this is like a nice dark blush, but you can see that like they don't quite align. You're gonna want this to move to be less saturated and in the same, you want them all to kind of be in the same area of this color palette, because if you have a really bright color, this doesn't work in it. It's not aligned with it. It doesn't feel as cohesive. So just play around with it, find what you like, and then once you do, great work. So I'm gonna go back to my own color palette because this is what I like. I'm gonna copy my base color here. And general navigation in Google Sheets, obviously you can navigate cells using your arrow keys. You can select full columns by clicking on the letters. You can select full lines by selecting on the numbers. You can just start typing in a cell, and then to move to the right, you're going to tab. To enter the cell, you're going to enter. To go down a cell, after you're entered the cell, enter. You can also, of course, just use your mouse to click what you want to do, but that's kind of some basics. So in order to select the whole sheet, we're actually going to go up into this corner here. We're going to select the entire sheet. We're going to make a custom color by pressing the cell color fill in. I'm just going to paste in my base color, and now I have a beige spreadsheet. How lovely. So we're going to actually need 3 base colors. The one I have here, I'm going to call my medium base. This is going to be my standard base. Then I'm going to have a slightly darker base color and a slightly lighter base color. Again, I have these already made, so I'm just going to input them in, but I will also have my full color palette with the hex codes down below in my description if you are just wanting to use my exact color palette, but I do welcome you to make your own. So my lighter color is here. So you can see it's like almost white. We're just making it slightly brighter, slightly less saturated, right? On a diagonal from where we are here. And then for my darker color, again, almost white, but just a tad bit more dark and saturated. And that's my dark color. So putting that back to just my standard base, and we have our base colors set up. So I am just going to select the whole sheet again, and this is because I'm going to pick a font. I personally like to use Montserrat. It's something that I find appealing, but you can choose whatever font you want. I would suggest using one that works well when it's bolded and italicized, something that's easily legible. Of course, if you want to use something that's like this huge extravagant script, you go for it. This is your spreadsheet, make it your own. I personally would suggest making something that's more legible so that the functionality of your spreadsheet isn't compromised by your font choice, but it's totally up to you. For the purpose of view of the spreadsheet, I do like to leave the first line completely blank so that it's not immediately text. I think that's a big component of making the spreadsheet aesthetic, is not having things start right up in this top corner. I'm going to now start making my series overview chart. This is the most complicated tab I have in my tracker, so this is probably going to be the biggest part of this whole video, but I think this is also the most fun part of this video. So I'm going to make an entire header section before we start the actual chart portion of my series overview. I'm going to have a header that's going to have a title, is going to have some overall statistics that I want that cover the entire chart. It's all going to be at the top. I think it makes it prettier that way. So what I'm going to do is take lines 2 to 4 and columns A to B, and I'm going to merge these cells together, and this is where I'm going to be putting my title. Oh, I just remembered also one other thing I want to do is have my text be dark brown instead of black, so I also just have a hex code for this. Again, this is totally just me liking brown over black, so I'm gonna make all of my text brown. Totally unnecessary. Black obviously works with every color palette as a text color. So I'm going to title this series tracker, and I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to make the font size 20. So there we go. We have a title. Then in C3, I'm going to put currently reading and a colon. This is going to be bold. In F2, I'm going to put books in series, colon. Then we're going to have an F3 red, books red. It's more direct. And then books to read, and all 3 of these are also going to be bolded. What I'm going to do with these is I'm going to make the placement far right. Same with currently reading. We're going to make this placement far right, and I'm going to explain this. So we're putting these far right because these are all going to be numbers that are formulated. So because we're using a formula to get these statistics inputted here, we need to have the number in a separate cell from the title of that statistic. So in order to make that seem clean, I put all of these texts far right, and then all of these numbers, once they're formulated, are going to be far left. It's going to make them line up like they're in a single row instead of two separate cells. So now that we have the headers lined up here, we're going to make the actual table. We're going to make the column titles for our table or chart, whatever you want to call it. So here in A, I'm going to put series. B is going to be author. C is going to be books in series. We're going to skip D here. In E, we're going to put status. F, we're going to put read. G is going to be to read. H and I, these are cells. I'm going to merge these together. This is going to be progress. And then J is date started. K is date finished. And then L is going to be up to date. All of these I'm going to make size 12, and I'm going to bold them. And then I'm also going to make all of these centered. So as you can see here, a lot of these texts are being cut off right now. So what we're going to do is just go up to the columns, and we're going to adjust their size so that you can read everything that's in them. I am going to take D and make D really small here, and then I will just merge C and D just for these lines so that this is centered, so it doesn't look like there's two columns up here, and instead it's just one from here below. H, again, doesn't need to be as big as the other ones because this is where we're going to be putting the percentage, and then I is going to be where we're going to be putting our progress bar. So now let's just make enough room here so we can read all of our titles. And one additional thing we're going to do, we're going to go into row 7, and I'm going to put in some borders that are going to be my favorite chocolate brown. They're going to be very thick, and it's just going to be on the top of row 7. So now we have this bar that's showing the base of all of our headers. And from here, we're going to go to make our alternating colors for our table. I like to do this because I find it makes it easier to read across lines when you're having this many columns for the rows to be alternating in colors. I'm just going to make A bigger as well because some series have very long names, so we're just going to move that bigger, as well as authors, honestly. You can always continue to readjust these as you're going. So I like to have the series titles be alternating colors, and then the rest of the table is going to be alternating different colors. And this is where those 3 base colors we made are going to come into play. So we're going to go to A7. Actually, no. I lied. We're going to go to A8, and I will show you why, because I forgot something. I'm going to freeze all of our headings, and this means that when we scroll, all of our headers will remain at the top, and you'll still be able to see them. So we're going to go to A7, and we're going to go View, Freeze, up to row 7. And then what I like to do here is make row 7 really, really small so that it basically doesn't exist. And what this means that the freeze line here that shows up, this kind of gray line that shows up when you freeze cells, it's not going to cover up this brown line we made to designate the beginning of our chart. So again, it's purely aesthetics that I do that, but I do think it looks better this way. So then we're going to go into A8. We're going to alternate colors for A8, and we're going to change the apply to range so that it's A8 to A, and this is just going to mean that it's going to apply from A8 until as far as the spreadsheet will ever generate. I'm going to remove the header, and then the colors for this, I'm going to make color 1 my dark base, and I'm going to make color 2 my medium base. Now it's applied here, and I want to do the same for the rest of the chart, but I'm going to make the colors slightly different. So I'm going to go into B8, and again, alternating colors, B8, but this time we're going to do Z and 1000. I can't see the chart going any farther than that, so that's going to work for our purposes. The colors for this one is going to be color 1 as our medium base and color 2 as our light base, and apply. So now, as you can see, we have dark light for our alternating colors, but the series column is darker than the rest of the chart. I just like this visually. I think it looks good. I am also just now thinking I'm gonna want all of the values I put into this chart to be centered. Other than the series, I kind of like the series title to be left, but in order to save myself some time later, I'm just gonna select all of these columns and we're going to do center placement, and then I'm just going to go back to these individual cells that I want to be far right and switch them back to far right because that's going to be easier in the long run. So we're now ready to start inputting some data into our series overview. So let's start, say, with a quart of thorns and roses, which is by Sarah J. Maas. These are all things I just manually input, same with books and series, which is 5. I'm just going to merge these cells as well, just so that it's really centered instead of slightly off center, but that's up to you. Status, this is the place that I'm initially going to put a drop-down menu. For me, status of a series, it's either an ongoing series, the author is going to be releasing more books, or it's a completed series and there's no more books to be released. So in order to accomplish this, we're going to insert and drop down. And again, we're going to change this range so that it's going to be from E8 to E. So all the way down the column, and it's going to be a drop down menu with option 1 being ongoing and option 2 being completed. Now for the colors of this, I'm just going to go back to my color palette. I'm going to copy my medium base color, and I'm just going to make both of these, color, customize, paste in my medium base hex code. I'd like this to be consistent. I don't find it necessary for these drop down options to be different colors, but of course you can make them be different colors as you wish. So now that we have that there, now we can continue to just select whatever one we want as we're entering our series. A Quart of Thorns and Roses, I believe, is still ongoing. And as you can see here now, I can't read this, so we're going to adjust the column size so we can. Let's just check that it works for completed as well. It does. Wonderful. I have read all 5 of these books, so let's input that. And now here for to read, we get to my first place I use a formula. This is a very simple one. We're just going to be taking the books in the series and minusing the books we've read. So for this, we're going to go equals minus. Don't worry, also, I'm going to put all of the formulas I use in the description, so you can just copy and paste them into your own spreadsheet instead of having to type them out as I'm going. Don't worry, they'll all be down below. So I'm going to do minus, I'm going to select the book series column, and then I'm going to comma and select the red cell. And end your bracket, and there we go. It's going to auto calculate. Now for progress, I use 2 different formulas for this, and this is why we have 2 columns. The H column is much smaller here because this is going to be our percentage number, and this is going to be our progress bar. So let's start with the percentage. This is going to be equals, we're going to bracket, and we're going to have the books read divided by, so / the books in series. We're going to end the bracket, and here we go. So right now, obviously it's showing up as 1, but what we're actually going to want this to show up as is a percentage. So we're going to go click H, so we're selecting the entire column, and we're going to go to format, and we're going to do number, and we're going to click the 0% here. This is going to mean that there's not going to be any decimal points in the percentage. It's always going to round to just a number, no decimal points. So here we have the percentage. Let's just give that a little bit more room to breathe. And now it is time for the progress bar. This was the hardest thing I figured out, but I did Google how to make a progress bar and then kind of adjusted it to work for my needs. So here we're going to do equals sparkline, okay? And then when you click the formula, it's going to put your opening bracket for you. So here we're going to take the books read, and then we're going to comma, and then it's going to be one of those swirly brackets. I don't know what they're actually called. It's like the fancy one. And then we're going to do quote, chart type, and quote, comma, quote, bar. So we're making a mini bar chart in this cell. We're then going to semicolon, and then the max, so this is the most that can be in the bar, comma, and what the max is going to be is the books in series. If you can see, this is kind of like a really expanded visual version of the percentage formula that we did, which is much simpler. So then we're going to semicolon again. We're going to quote color 1, and then the color I like to use, so we're going comma, quote, and then the color I want is pink. So then we're going to swirly bracket, and then we're going to end bracket, and then this should work if I didn't make any typos. Perfect. So if you are wanting this to be a different color, say you want it to be lavender, say you want it to be yellow, if you want it to be blue, again, it just applies the same way. I like mine to be pink. So now for date started and date finished, what we're going to do, this is again another formatting thing. I personally like for the format to be we're going to do custom date time. I like it to be month year only just because I think it's cleaner. So we're going to apply. And then here, say I started this at the beginning of March. So 03/03, 2021, say. So now it's going to automatically take my full date I enter and just make it month year. Now I haven't finished this series because it's ongoing, so that's going to stay the same. And then for up to date, here I like to put a checkbox. So we're just going to insert checkbox. And because I've read all of this, we're going to check it closed. So now let's put in a new series. Say it's Chestnut Springs. This is by Elsie Silver. There are also 5 books in this series. Again, I'm just going to merge these just so it makes my little organized heart happy. This is completed. I've read 3 of these books. So now you're thinking, oh, I have to type these formulas out again. No, you do not. On Mac, Command C or right click copy of the cell that has the formula. Go into the cell you want the formula in. You're going to do paste special formula only, and it's just going to do that automatically for you. And then we can do that for all of our formulas, including the progress bar. And then let's say I started this, I don't know. So let's say the 23rd of January, and then we're going to insert our checkbox again. This one I'm not up to date, so we're not going to check it. And now that we have multiple series in here, we can work on the formulas for our headers. So for books and series, this is going to be a simple sum. So we're going to do equals sum, and it's going to be here, books and series. So let's click C8, and then we wanted to do everything we ever input into this column. So we're going to do a colon, and then we're going to say C. So now you can see it's applying to everything here. And our bracket is auto going to do that. So for books read, don't suggest things to me. I'm doing the tutorial. Now for books read, again, we're going to do equals the sum, and it's going to be here, the books we've read, colon F, apply to the whole range. For books to read, you have 2 options. You can either do, again, sum of G8 all the way to G, or what I like to do is minus, and it's going to be the books in series, comma, the books I've read, and it's going to calculate out. And the great thing about this is as you keep adding here, all of these are going to just auto calculate. They're auto formulating, so you don't have to update these numbers yourself. Saves you time. So then for currently reading, this is actually a fun one. What I have this do is count how many checkboxes are unchecked, which is why I insert checkboxes as I go instead of just having all of the checkboxes here already, because then it's going to mess up your numbers. You calculate if you have the format set up so that there's already checkboxes in every single line. If it doesn't have a series filled out on that line, don't put a checkbox or else this is not going to work. So we're going to do equals count if is going to be if L8 to L, comma, false. And then we're going to have our end bracket. And so now you see that's 1. If I check this off, now it's 0. Uncheck it, it's back to 1. Super fun. I know, it's great. So now what I'm going to do is for all of these values, again, I'm going to move them left. This is going to make this look like one line instead of 2 separate cells. Same for here. And then the final thing that I do is go to View, Show, and remove the grid lines. It just makes it much cleaner. It looks like everything is so much prettier now that there's no grid lines there, but do keep the grid lines there when you're working. It definitely makes it easier when you can actually see all of the cells. But once I finished with that, no grid lines, all vibes. So this is the hardest part of this whole thing, and play around with it how you want. For example, I feel like I want this to actually be in the center of this big cell, so I'm going to move that. Adjusted the column sizes so that it works with what you're wanting. I like to make sure I can still see all of the columns I have applied so that I don't have to like scroll left and right within the table. I like to only have to scroll up and down. Water break. So the hard part is done. Let's move on. We're going to add a new sheet here. So this is going to create a new tab. And I'm going to name this tab Currently Reading. And again, we're going to make this whole thing pretty, right? We're going to select the whole sheet, color it our base color. We're going to make our text brown. And I'm going to make all of the font the same. And again, we're going to skip the top line, and then we're going to make our key. So I'm going to put here, I don't want it back capitalized, but I capitalize it. Completed series. Then we're going to have owned, then unreleased, and then I'm going to do read in 2021 since that's when I started my sheet. If you're only starting your reading now, you can obviously just put read in 2024, or if you need to go back even farther, go for it. Read in 2022, read in 2023, and read in 2024. So here for completed series, I'm going to make this bolded. And then I'm actually going to color this brown and change this text to be white. I guess I could also change it to be my light base color if you want to keep that consistent, but I find once you're looking at the text instead of a whole cell, the white and a light base color don't look that different, but to each their own. Let's make that big enough so you can see it. Owned, we're going to underline. Unreleased, we're going to italicize. And then here is where our color palette is going to come into play. So you're going to have your color palette decided. I would say 4, maybe 5 colors for the years, and then you can just rotate back through them depending on, how much time. If you think you're going to have a series that you read one book and you're not going to read the next book for 5 years, maybe you're going to need 6 colors so that you can differentiate those years. For me, I don't see myself doing that. Right now I have 4 colors. I might add a 5th for 2025. I haven't decided, but we're going to just choose what colors we want for each year, copy our hex codes over, and then we're going to make this cell that color. Red in 2022 is going to be, let's make that one orange. Make red in 2023 green, and red in 2024 will be pink. So now again we're going to make our table. So I'm going to skip another row just so that we have a bit of the base before we start the chart. We're going to put series in A. After that we're just going to go book 1, book 2, on to however many books you think you will need here. Of course, you can always add more. I'm going to do 8 just for now. This whole line, I'm just going to make this, a size 14 font just so that it's more easily read. And then I'm going to do that trick again. We're going to take line 5, select the whole thing, going to put a thick upper border on it, and then we're going to view and freeze up to row 5. We're going to just make row 5 as small as possible so that we can still see our nice brown bottom of our header line without it being obstructed by our frozen line. So now is where we're going to put in our series. So here we're going to do A Court of Thorns and Roses, which of course book 1, Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, A Court of Silver Flames, because apparently we just abandoned the consistency of our titling with book 5. Now, of course, these all are cut off right now. Don't worry, I'm going to fix that in a moment. So we're going to do A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm going to bold this title because it's the series title. Now we're going to do Chestnut Springs is the other one I put in. So we have Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, Hopeless? I think that's how it goes. And this is a completed series. So here we're going to do our brown cell with light text and bolded. So you see this matches. The match is the key. I'm now going to take all of this. You can just keep going down forever. And what I'm going to do here is wrap the text, and then we're going to center it, and we're also going to align it in the middle. So now we can see everything going on, right? And now we can mark books that you owned as underlined. I own all of these. I own the first 3 books of this. If there was, say, Hopeless wasn't released yet, I'd italicize that. And then you'll color code as you have read them. So I've read Court of Thorns and Roses in 2021. Say I read this in 2022 and this in 2022. Maybe I read this one in 2023. I don't know. I honestly, I don't remember. I'm making this up. And let's say I've read all of these in 2024. So we'll color them to be like that. Wonderful, wonderful, right? What I would then do, now you could have done this earlier and it probably would have been smarter than what I'm doing right now, but we're going to duplicate this whole sheet and I'm going to rename this to completed series. And I'm just going to then delete these filled blocks, color them all back to the base. So now we have, again, a blank thing over here. This is not going to be filled out right now because I'm still currently reading these. But say if I finish reading Chestnut Springs, so say I finish reading Reckless and I finish reading Hopeless all in 2024, because this is a completed series, there's not going to be more books coming out. What I'm going to do is select the whole line, cut, go over to my complete line, paste into there. Now this is moved over here and we just are going to delete the row it was in. And now this is our completed series, or this is our currently reading series, and then these are series that we've completed. Pretty simple. So phone ran out of space. I talked too much, but we're back to go through the final part of my spreadsheet, the final tab, which is going to be the On My Radar tab. So let's create a new tab here, and we're going to rename it to On My Radar. And again, we're going to do our standard actions here, filling it to our base color, having our text be the color you want, and changing the font to be the one you want for the entire sheet. Always start off with that. It makes your life easier going forward when you're doing the rest. This is like my least aesthetic page of my chart. I feel it's very basic. So I'm just going to make a tab and start it right up in the front corner here. It's going to be TBR series, author, books in series, genre, and age range. And then I'm going to take this and I am going to make all of it brown, make the text my light base, bold it, adjust these. Again, series names are usually longer. Let's also take all of this and center it. Now let's make this our alternating colors again for ease of reading. So we're gonna go into A2 here. We're going to fill color, alternating colors. Again, we're gonna change the rain from A2 to A. We don't want a header. And then because we already did this on our previous sheets here, you can just select the colors again as you want them. So I want my dark base, medium base for this one. Then we're going to go into B2 and do the same thing for our medium and light bases. So this is going to be B2. Of course, here I only want it to go to E because that's where my table ends. So I'm going to do E1000. I'm going to pick my light base colors here. So now let's input some drop-down menus. So in D for genre, range here to include all of D, and then we'll put in some options. You can make these for whatever genres you want. You can make them more specific, not as specific. Say I have romance, fantasy, and mystery here. And then for these, again, you can make all of these to be the same color. You can make them be different colors for each genre, whatever you want. I think just for ease right now, I'm going to just take my dropper tool here to grab my medium base color and just make all of them the same. I just really love beige, okay? I really do. Just beige everything up, okay? And then we're going to go into E and do the same thing for age range. So insert drop down for all of E. And I do read middle grade sometimes. So I'm going to put middle grade. I'm going to put young adult. And I'm going to put adult. Again, you can change these to be whatever values you want. I mean, let's switch it up. I could also be like middle grade is my light base color. Young adult could be my medium base color, and then adult can be my dark base. So now for the on my radar portion is just filling it in. So say I have Gold Rush Ranch by Elsie Silver. There's 5 books in the series. It's romance. Let's make this bigger so I can read it. And it is adult. That's really like all there is to it. Say, what's another series that I've been wanting to read? Why am I forgetting every single series I've ever wanted to read in my entire life right now? Interesting behavior on my part. Let's say it's The Folk of the Air. It's by Holly Black, and there's 3 books, and that one's fantasy, and it's young adult. Again, I'm going to make this wide enough, and then you can just keep filling it in as you go. And then if you start reading it, you can just delete the row that has the one that you've started reading. Say I start reading The Folk of the Air, delete that row, bam, back to what it was before. You put it onto the other series overview. So that's how I make my series tracker. I hope this helped. I hope this was clear. It definitely wasn't concise. I talked for ages. I hope this is useful to people. Like I said, I'm going to link below all the formulas I used. My color palette will also be in the description. So if you are wanting to use exactly what I did, it will be down there for you to copy and paste over. But yeah, happy spreadsheeting, everybody. And tell me, all about your spreadsheets. I would love to know what kind of color palette to use and all of that. If you happen to like this video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. Do let me know down below what you use this tutorial to make a spreadsheet for. Is it a reading tracker? Are you tracking something else? Whatever it may be, let me know. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.